Okay. Hello, Facebook. This is Terry Hatchett of the Hatchett Chronicles, and I'm doing a special Hatchett Chronicles today. I am in the office with my sister, Valerie McAllister, and this is just a little something we decided to do today. We're still going to have our regular Hatchet Chronicles tomorrow at 3, called um, Living God's Plan. Don't change God's plan. Um, but I wanted to do a special Hatchet Chronicles with my sister because my sister is always doing her Facebook Live and we're always doing ours. And I just wanted to do one together with her because I love my sister. This is my big sister. I love her. My husband is in the studio, so we want to do one together. So we were just talking, and we were talking about how hard it is that when you're going through to have faith in God. And so we decided that we would do this special Facebook Live and talk about that. So for all of y'all that's out there, please join in with us. Um, I have to get my big sister to teach me how to invite because I don't know how to do that.
Oh. Usually at the bottom you have a list of your friends, and so I have that on my phone. I don't know if you have that on your
Oh, well, this is not the phone, so I'm not sure with the camera. And I don't want to mess up nothing, so I'm going to leave it alone. So, yeah, if y'all just see us on, just come on and come in and have to talk with us. So, Valerie, I was telling you how I have a friend who's really going through a hard time right now. And I was saying that that was the lesson in itself because I've been there still going through some changes with my husband and I, financially and just with life. Life is a roller coaster. But what I've learned is that our flesh gets us so caught up in the moment of what we're going through that we literally say to God, okay, well, I hear you, God. I know you're right, but I'm just gonna go over here and do this something different because you might not see that block right there. So I'm just gonna help you out.
Yeah. So the thing of it is, and I was talking the other day about how we are spiritual beings living a human experience, and we're also human beings living a spiritual experience. And so that is the lesson that I'm trying to learn. However, it is a difficult lesson because we were talking about two things. One, in the role of a man, and even in the role of a woman who has been the provider, who has been sort of the one that takes care of people. I don't like it up. You could put it back down.
That with old people.
That is hard because this is my constant situation. I have been in the role of caretaker for a very long time. So in that role, it's always me figuring out how to get from A to B, C to D in my head. And when I cannot see towards the end of the role, I know in my spirit that I'm supposed to trust God. I know that in my spirit. But that's difficult for me because I am so used to figuring it out. So that's the lesson I'm learning. I know because God shows me all the time that when I do turn it over to Him, He provides. And I know He'll provide. But my humanness goes to a place of unworthiness. Unworthiness is one of the things that I think attacks a lot of our spirit. So unworthiness says you're supposed to know that, or how come you can't take care of that, or what's wrong with you that you're not doing that, or you're weak, or you're inept, or you're all of these things. That is a constant fight, and it's a battle against your flesh. And it's hard for people that know God. So people that don't know God don't even have that tool to pull on. I know God, but I also feel like sometimes, are you hearing me? Or, maybe you hear me, but so I believe in you. Why aren't you doing this for me? Or why aren't you doing this now for me? knowing that he can see down the road and he sees something that I don't see. But it frustrates me.
Because we're like children. We are his children. So we're like, I want it now. I'm hurting. You don't understand what our children tell us. Our children will be in the midst of something and we'll say, well, you should do so and so, so. And they'll say, I mean, my kids tell me all the time, you just don't understand what I'm going through. And it's like, yeah, it's like we understand, but they don't see that we understand it because they want it at the time. They are in the midst of it at the time. And that's the same thing that we do with God. We're in the midst of it at the time. And deep down inside, we know God understands. But because we're in the midst at the time, for us, it's like he just don't understand. Or he might not see that it's bigger than what he think it is. And so we need it now. We got to do this now. So we're going to have to go out here and find a way right now until he get ready. And then what ends up happening, though, is sometimes we make things worse. Sometimes we stay in that rut that we're in because God is trying to make us see or teach us a lesson. And we don't see that lesson. And so we're stay in it until we learn that lesson. You know how we were saying just a minute ago, God gives some hard tests. And, we're
he
like,
does.
God, that test is hard. What you say? Wow, that's so hard. Yeah, can I get an easy one?
Here's my thing. I do say this to God. Like, if I play the lottery, you know the numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Why you can't just tell me? It ain't like you don't know the numbers.
And like I said, my husband has drawn me so much closer to God. And sometimes I'd be like, well, he got all the faith in the world. He got 100 on his test. So can I get some of those points? I did marry him. I'm with him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't I get credit for that?
Our kids don't get credit for ours because they have to walk in their own tests.
Yeah.
And we have to walk in our own tests. And tests are part of life. But tests are, man, one of the things that I realized that you do get different levels of tests. So you are attacked at different ways. So once you master one level, so there are certain things that I feel in my life that I'm not weak to. So now there's a different test.
Yeah.
So there's constant tests. There's constant of strengthening in faith. And a friend of mine said to me that everything is about seasons, and that's something that I'm learning. When you're high up and things are going good, don't get too comfortable because it's only a season. Mm-hmm. And when you're going through and you're in sort of the valley, don't get too comfortable because that's only a season, and that we are meant to have seasons in and out, ebbs and flows, influxes and outfluxes throughout our life. So as you get to a point where you're going through and God, if you're a believer, says to you that this too shall pass. And when it passes, sometimes we think, okay, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm good now. Because I thought that at one point, oh man, I'm good. I was so happy and things are going really well. And then swam out of nowhere. Bam! Yeah. And this, and this. I'm like, wait a minute. And my immediate feeling was, wow, I believe in you. I trust. What are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you taking me backwards? And immediately I started to feel like I'm going backwards, and that said something about me.
No, that's also life after bent knees. My book that's coming out, look out for it, The Power of God. I talk about that, life after bent knees, because so many ministers and preachers, whatever you want to call them, they preach, come to God, if you come to God. And it always gives you a sense of, all I got to do is, give my life to God, and everything's going to be peachy. We going to be cool. Then, life is, I ain't going to have no trouble. But that's not what God says. Life after bent knees means that we only giving ourselves to God so that He can fight our battles for us. We're going to still have trials and tribulation. He says that in John 10:10. The difference is that He is here to help us fight our battles. We have the faith enough to know that it's going to be all right no matter what we're going through. it will be all right. And that's what I know.
You do hear
no,
music.
yes, I
You
do.
acting like I deserve it. I'm
no.
not
Okay,
by myself.
that was my husband, and he is in the studio. And for those of you who don't know, I work for my husband. And we have a business together. So when he's in the studio, I'm kind of his assistant, and he usually calls me for stuff. But I'm ignoring him because I am on Facebook Live doing the Hatchett Chronicles. So I
just want to make sure that I wasn't the only one that heard
I'll be
that
right back. Talk to the people about my husband.
I was just trying to make sure I wasn't the only one that heard that noise. She was sitting here like she didn't hear it. So she wants me to talk about life after good needs. I'm not really sure what she means, but I know that once you have accepted and you're calling for God or you're walking with God, that things then become harder. That although it might seem like all you have to do is surrender yourself to God and everything will be good and you will no longer have trials, that's really just the beginning of things, because what happens when you accept God or you start to walk in God is that the enemy wants to continue to test you. He wants to find out how deep your faith is and how much you truly believe in God. And so it's almost like it's just the beginning. So a lot of times there are people who are in the Word of God, pastors, ministers, that make it look really easy and make it look like all you have to do, what's wrong with you? Just follow God and everything. And that's not the truth. They get more tested, I think, than
we do. We do. I say that all the time. I've been saying that since I took my walk as a minister, that the only difference between me and my congregation or other people is that God, the devil, the enemy messes with me harder because of the fact that I am an ordained minister. You know, it's like people sometimes look, you're supposed to know, you're not like surprised if I lose faith or if I get a little discouraged or if I'm not, where I'm supposed to be. But I'm human, I've said this, and I say this in my book, The Power of God, that, I was an ordained minister for 9 years, and I still was not where I was supposed to be. I'm still learning, even though now there's, like my sister said, there's more tests, there's bigger tests, there's different tests, there's different seasons. So don't think just because I'm an ordained minister that my life is perfect, or that, okay, nothing don't touch me or affect me, or that I don't lose. My faith don't get weak sometimes. It does. Because that's not about just believing in God. That's about being tested. It's about just being able to go through the fire. Survival. This is life. This stage of life, it's all about a test. There's different levels. We all trying to do the same thing. We just trying to get to the next level, and it's a fight. And the enemy does his. Yeah. He is the only one that stays on his job. The enemy, because he stays 24/7 on his job.
I'm sorry. What? I was having an arm issue.
Old people, I'm telling you. Old people.
I am old. I don't care. That's what it is. Yes.
So it's just, I agree with you about that. I get looked at as it used to bother me about getting judged because everybody was like, you're a minister. You're not supposed to. Who said a minister doesn't? I'm not God.
But see okay, so boom, right there, that's where I want to rest right there. Ministers are not God. Absolutely, they have a calling. And a calling, it ain't something that you say, this is what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
God calls you, he ushers you into it. You're chosen, right? But we all have a ministry in us. The ministry is simply sharing the good word of God, sharing God, helping bring people to God. So sometimes what happens is that we will put all of our faith and trust in what we believe is the man of God, the deacon, the the bishop, the this, the this, the this. And then when they act human, which they are, we can't handle it, and then it makes us mad at God. It destroys our faith. A lot of people have walked away from the church, just like the Catholic Church, where all of these priests have been accused of molesting young boys and girls and whatever. Okay, so I have friends that call themselves recovering Catholics because they no longer choose to really believe in God because of what happened in the Catholic Church. And that's which we need to check, because our faith and our love, our belief and our trust should be in God. Yes, he does send us individuals to represent him, to minister to his sheep. But we have to have a strong enough bond with God so that no matter what happens with that human being, that it doesn't change our relationship with God. Because the word will tell you that man will fail you. The word will tell you that you should only trust in God. The word will tell you all of those things. So when you have put all your trust in this man and something happens and you see them being human, then the next thing to do is to pray for them. Because the word does also tell you not to judge. But some of us are so connected. It's like that is, some people live these regimented lives, right? Very traditional. And Bishop so-and-so said this, and Pastor so-and-so said that, and Pastor so-and-so said it, and that's what it is. And I'm going to give all my money to Pastor so-and-so, and I'm going to go do whatever Pastor so-and-so, which is fine. I understand the reverence that you have and that there's a leader that you're following. But you got to have your own relationship with God, even in the word, because everything that you hear, you shouldn't believe it. You should see it for yourself. And then you have to interpret it, because everything is about your knowledge of and your relationship with. There are things in the Bible that I read and I have to interpret it. Number one, I have to say, where's my cord in that'll help me understand this? Well, number one, it was written for a certain time. In this time, like the King James Version, there was a lot of stuff going on. Like, you don't see a lot of women, because in that time, women were not put out in front. Women they weren't really considered valuable people. So when I read something, I have to look a little further. What does this mean for my life? When this was written, what were they doing? You know, what was meant by this? And then dig deeper. It's like you can't just take things verbatim and say, well, that's what it is, verbatim. Every time you read the Bible, you should have a different understanding of it, because you're at a different place in your life, and it means different things.
And it's a tool, just like everything else. And that's a good point, Bella, because one thing is, that's why we're supposed to pray before we read the Bible, and the Bible is supposed to be read in truth, in spirit and in truth. The reason being is because, I'll tell you a quick story. When I first was in my 6-month walk to become a minister, I was working at this consignment shop, and this lady was coming in bringing these beautiful dresses, and she kept bringing in, I don't need this now. Every time she came in, I don't wear this. I don't need this right now. One of the dresses she said she had just got saved, and, a couple of dresses I understood. One of the dresses that she brought in, it was like a little diamond out in the back. But it was, it wasn't too bad. It was just a little diamond out in the back. So that day I asked her, because I was always curious. I was like, why do you keep saying that you don't need this right now? Because you got saved. And she said, because my pastor said I'm not supposed to wear this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's interesting. I said, yeah. I said, because I'm in my 6 months to be a minister myself, in my 6-month walk. And she looked at me, and I was like, God called me to minister. And she was like, God ain't called you to do that. You women not supposed to preach. Women are not supposed to teach. And I said, oh, really? And she was like, yeah, God, I'm sorry, God didn't call you to do that. You didn't understand that. And I said, and where does that say that at? So she took me to 1 Corinthians, which it does at that time. They were saying women wasn't in the pulpit. And I was like, and I was like, wow, you taught me something. I said, well, isn't that a sin, what you just taught me? Since women are not supposed to teach. And she got real mad and she walked out. But that was the lesson, to say that people will take, and my pastor used to say this. People will read a verse in the Bible, and they will twist it to the way they see it, and make it out of the way they want it to be for their own gain. And that's something that we should not do. We should read in spirit and in truth. And look, like you said, and that, where does that come from? What timing was that? What was this lesson? First of all, God, what are you trying to teach me? Because it's not about whatever lesson that was learned at that time. It's about what God is trying to tell you. The Bible is a tool.
Absolutely.
To help us. So what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to teach me from this? Why did you lead me to this passage? That's why we're supposed to pray.
And most of, so I studied Islam at one point in my life, Jehovah Witness. I studied with Jehovah Witnesses at one point of my life, studied the Torah at one point in my life. And really, the language is similar, very, very similar. So for me, it's about, that's what someone else believes. That's their practice. That's how they're serving God. But I'm not mad at anything. Like some people will say, well, I listen to Louis Farrakhan because there are some of his things that are
definitely.
And I've had Christians say to me, well, how are you a Christian and you listen to and kind of going along with Minister Farrakhan is saying? Because Minister Farrakhan is making sense. And a lot of what he's saying has to do with how we are as a people, which can be backed up by the word. People want to segregate people and say this is right and that's wrong. There's one God. I believe that. There's one God. I think that, and this is just me, there are people say different paths to God, but there's one God. The similar belief system is about how you treat somebody, about love, because even in the Bible, with everything that was written, the Bible talks about two things. The most important thing that Jesus talked about was to love God and love your fellow man. And on all of this, on everything else hangs on those two things. And that's the part we can't get right. Because when you think about the Ten Commandments, when you think about everything that's happened throughout the Bible, and when you look at the Quran, and when you look at the Torah, it is, if we loved God and our fellow man, certain things wouldn't happen. Certain things we wouldn't have to worry about, because when you love your fellow man and God, you treat people right, you're fair, you're just, you don't kill, you don't steal, you don't covet, you don't cheat, you don't lie, you don't do all those things because you love God and honor God so much, and you love your brother and sister, and you wouldn't do that to them.
You know what I think, Valley? I think it becomes a wordplay, like everything in this world. Because people get Christianity confused with religion. I'm not a religion person, okay? Hear me. I'm not religious. I am a Christian. Because what does the word Christian mean? It means to be Christ-like. See, I feel like that we get so caught up in wordplay, and we society plant a seed of what a word means, and then they take it back and say, well, there's no such thing as that. Like the word perfect. I always talk about the word perfect because people will tell you, there's no such thing as perfect. Like I'll say, my husband is perfect. My husband is perfect to me. I didn't say he was perfect to you, because to you he might be something else. But to me, he's perfect. Okay? He's perfect for me. Now, you can't tell me there's no such thing as perfect because the word is in the dictionary. Well, then why is there a word of perfect if there's no such thing as perfect? That's a word play for me. Just like overstand and understand. Understand, to under means below. But we say we understand. That means we below standing. So why wouldn't it be overstanding? So it becomes a word play. Religion is all the different Baptist, Muslim. That's religion. Christianity is to be Christ-like. I am only being Christ-like, with the love, with, don't steal, don't cheat, love thy neighbor. That's Christ-like. So people get caught up in, if you listen to what Farrakhan say, then you're not being Christ-like. No, you're not being religious. That's what you're not being. And that's what people get caught up in. They get confused with definitions of things because society has put in our mind that certain things does not exist, or certain things are not supposed to be. People will say to you, just like the woman said to me, God didn't tell you that. Or just like if I say, my husband is perfect. Oh, your husband ain't perfect. How can you say that? It's the same thing. Also, another good example of that is if you say, and I heard this preached one time, and it made a lot of sense. I heard a minister preach this one time. I'm perfect. I have never did anything wrong in my life. I'm perfect. The reason why I say that is because when you ask God for forgiveness for something, He throws it in the sea of forgetfulness, never to be brought up again. Now, if God can forgive us for us, if you ask God for forgiveness, He gives you that forgiveness, right? If He throws away, never to be brought up again, then that means your slate was wiped clean for everything that you have done in the past. Now, I'm not saying that you won't make more mistakes, but the things you've done in the past. Now, that's written in the Bible, but that's unheard of in society. Because to say that is like, oh no, where did you get out that? Because people get caught up in words, and they look at, here's the thing, they look at what is, and they don't close their eyes and listen to what God says it's going to be.
Yeah. And I think people do that for themselves. It's almost like
it is
when you are in recovery,
mm-hmm.
and so part of being in recovery is that you go into meetings and stuff. And there are some people that feel like, well, I don't have to go to meetings, and the recovery says that you do have to go to meetings. Well, if something saves your life, so if religion saves somebody's life, then they're following every step of it
mm-hmm.
for fear of losing control of
mm-hmm.
themselves. But I feel like, and I'm clear, I'm aware. I'm sure there's more aware that I can be about my history. And so, when I'm having conversations with my friends who are Muslim and things like that, and they talk about the history of the African American in this country and how the Bible was used as a tool to keep us enslaved. And I say this, and this is just for me, right? The essence of everything, the essence of Jesus, the essence of Christianity, even the essence of Islam, the things, when the Bible talks about focus on the things that are good, right? I can take the essence out of everything. It doesn't taint or shake my religion. I understand what the history is in this world. For African Americans in this world. But here's the thing, whatever you might say that Christianity was for African Americans at a time when there was slavery, it was the strength that brought us through. It was the strength that allowed Harriet Tubman to free a lot of other slaves. It was the strength that helped Nat Turner to fight. It was the strength that kept some of our ancestors from going crazy after being mutilated, hung, raped. It was that strength and that belief in that Bible. So how can you say that that's bad? How can you say that it made them a slave? Humans made us slaves. That Bible's strength, and it was the spirit of, because most of our ancestors could not read. It was the spirit of what was in that word that kept them strong. So when they talk literally to me about how, y'all are slave to the Bible,
Let me ask a question about that, because I'll take it one step further. If, in fact, and again, this is my belief, and I'm probably going to have some things about this one, but let me say this. If, in fact, that the Bible that was created by the white man to keep us enslaved, then why is it that it talks about how Jesus, he comes from Ethiopia, he comes from black blood? And also, to take it one step further, in the Bible, it talks about how when you remember the story of leprosy, and how when his slave took the money, and when he said nothing for it, when the man was dipped in and he was made whole again, he didn't have leprosy anymore. He said that the penance for the slave was turned white. Now I say this all the time, and this is just my belief. He didn't say, because we are taught that, again, society teaches us that leprosy was spots, white spots. The Bible never mentions spots. It said he turned white, is driven slow, period. It never said spot. So I interpret that to mean that actually, in retro, the white man is the leprosy because he turned white. Now, society would say that leprosy was white spots, but according to the Bible, leprosy was just white.
But I think that's what you mean by interpretation, because racism is oftentimes predicated on words from the Bible. People say, "Oh, God meant this and this," and they use that to kill. The Bible has been used for a lot of different things. So has other forms of written word, Islam. All of those have been used. So again, it's about interpretation.
But my point is, if, like the Bible said, Jesus' skin was bronze, then how can, if the white man, if the Bible was set up for us to be enslaved and use it as slaves, then wouldn't they have made themselves the ones that was?
Well, yeah, but a lot of people don't read that far. There are a lot of people that don't. Well, first of all, let me tell you this. A friend of mine told me that her family member read the Bible, because they were on this sort of discovery place where they read the Bible backwards and forward, and said to her, "I've been reading the Bible and I don't understand a thing in it." And so she said, "Well, what version are you reading?" She said, "The King James." She said, "Well, did you know that there were other versions out there that, like maybe the English version that you could understand?" And that person said, "No, I didn't even know that." So a lot of people read the Bible because they were taught to read the Bible and don't understand anything in it. Now, King James, for me, is one of the most difficult Bibles there is, this, thou. And King James was not a nice person. There's a lot of, it's like common sense has to engulf everything that we do. Common sense.
Like King James version.
I don't like King James version, but that's just my choice because I think it's difficult. But there are other versions that you can read, that because you're supposed to get an understanding of it. You're not supposed to just read it and say, "Oh, I read the Bible." Well, what did you get out of it?
That was the challenge in me, though. The reason why I like King James version is because when I first I had a lot of insecurities when I first had my calling to become a minister. And one of my things, because I had a lot of stupid thoughts about, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I can't do this. One of the things was I couldn't pronounce, like, the names in the King James version, like the people's names and the thou and the. I wasn't good at that. So I figured that if I could conquer that, then that was a sign to me that I was ready to be a minister. So, and that's not what made me ready to be a minister, but I guess God was like, okay, well, whatever it takes. So when I used to write down verses and memorize the verses, and be able to actually read it and understand what I was reading. And that was my step. And ever since then, I just got going to the King James Version because of that. Because, I was able to conquer that. I started to be able to, like Meshach, I could say the words and I started to understand that version of it. So King James just became my version. That was all. It was just my
that's your interpretation. See, everybody got to come to their faith walk based on what they're understanding.
It is, and it is totally based. It is. I never believe in saying to nobody, "God didn't tell you that," or "You didn't hear that from God," because everybody's relationship with God is different. Mm-hmm. And who am I to judge somebody's relationship with God or what they believe in, or or whatever. I'm human. I have got my own issues, so it's not right for me to tell somebody, God ain't tell you that, you wrong about that. I believe that our only job is to give information. Now, whether somebody takes it, whether they tell me I'm crazy, whatever they do with it, then the blood is on them. I can go to somebody, I can say, Valerie, God told me, you shouldn't go to that show today. Now, I did my job. If she still chooses to go, that's on her.
And here's me. This is what I believe, the loving God that we have. So then I'm praying and waiting for confirmation. Because in the past, there's been a lot of folks that have spoke over my life and said, God said this and God said that. And what I've learned is that, okay, me and God is cool. So if he told you that,
then I have to confirm it.
He's going to say it to me.
And we talked about that last week on Hatchett Chronicles. Are you ready for the one? Because we said that, like I've always said, I don't believe in praying for a man. So when my husband came to me and he said, God said that you're going to be my wife. It was like, well, God ain't tell me that. But that is our job. Our job is if somebody come to you and say God said something, then you're supposed to go to God and confirm it, because you're not just supposed to take their word for it. You're not supposed to do. I wasn't supposed to say, okay. Right. I was supposed to go to God and say, hey, is this true, or is this man talking crap, or what is it? It's just like I use this example in my book. If God tells a man, your wife is going to have on a red dress, black hat, and black shoes. Well, the man might not get, or he might not have the patience to get that full description. He might pick the first person in a red dress that don't have on black shoes or don't have that black hat. So it's her job to say, okay, God, am I the one that you chose for this man? We have to confirm. That's about confirming with God. And when you have a relationship with him, you are supposed to confirm things with him. But that's the point of having a relationship with him. Like you said, some people are not at that point, and it's okay. God has told me to pray for perfect strangers. My fear was they don't think I'm crazy. But I'm going to do what God says, because that's my relationship with God. From what they do with that, that's on them. If they're not at the point where they're confirming with God something he told me to bring to them, that's still on them. I have did my job. I did what God told me to do. So then it becomes what their relationship, which is none of my business and not on me, or what their relationship is, whether they are going to confirm it with God or what they're going to do about it. But it's your own relationship with God. You can't tell nobody else what their relationship. When God tells me to tell somebody something, he doesn't say beat their head in and make them believe it. He just said tell them. Because they don't necessarily have to believe me. Just like my husband said to me, okay, well, you have to pray on that. I don't know what to tell you. Just pray on it. And which is the correct answer, because he couldn't tell me, well, God said that. He wasn't supposed to beat me up and say, well, God told me this, so you're going to do this. No. Okay, well, now it's on you. You go and confirm it, and you take that any way you want to.
Yeah. But I think the first thing is building that relationship.
Yeah.
And building that relationship, I think, takes time.
It does.
There was a time when I used to say, people would say, God talks to me, and I'd be like, walking around saying, God, please talk to me. I want you to talk to me like that person said you talked to them. And it wasn't until a lot later in life that I understood how to hear his voice. Maybe some people do hear God audibly like we're talking now. That's not how I hear him. He drops things in my spirit that is confirmed with my spirit that it's him speaking and we're having a conversation. And I know it because there are things that I'm not thinking about, or, it's just this thing that comes over you. One, you have to find your place. your quiet place, your time of meditation, your time when you're still, your time when you don't have a lot of thoughts racing through your head. And he places things in my spirit.
Or a time where he meets you, because he meets people at different places. Like for me, when I first started out, it was in my car with my gospel, and that's where I got the most from God at. It's in the car with my gospel. That's where I heard him the clearest, where he talked to me the clearest. That's when he called me, in the car going down to South Carolina. So it's wherever he meets you at. It could be at night when you're asleep. It could be wherever he can catch you and you're standing still, and you, like she said, you're not filled up with the world and what's going on. When he gets you wherever you are standing still, that's why they said stand still. Sometimes you got to stand still to hear him. You got to back away from everything and just stand still, and he will talk to you.
He will. And if you need it big, because I'm the type of person, less now and more before, but I always say, okay, I need you to give this to me big, and I need it to be like this, so I can know it's not me. And I used to have those kind of conversations, because he knows how I am. Because I'd be like, oh, was that you? That could have been me. And what did you say? What you say? Dang. So when you ask him to give it to you big and confirm it, so you'll understand that he will do that as well. He understands how to communicate and connect with us because he made us. So maybe it's through music, maybe it's through art, maybe it's through words, maybe it's through dance, maybe it's through a person. But he knows us because he carved us and formed us before we were even a thought. So he understands how to connect with my sister, how to connect with me, how to connect with this one, separately, but so uniquely, because he's good like that.
He is good. And I say that all the time because in my book, The Power of God, one of my
y'all hear a plug of that book. She must say,
yes,
get the power of God, y'all. She won't say it about 50 times.
Yes, it's coming. Look for it. It's coming.
Oh, and also get my book too.
Yes. Book club too.
There it is.
Yes. I talk about how one of my weaknesses was men. Okay, and that's leave that right there. Y'all have to read the book. But anyway, so I always say how good my husband is and how he's brought me closer to God. But if you read the book, first of all, you will see that God used that to bring me to him, a man. So how ironic, he, like my sister said, he will use whatever he needs to, whatever tool, music, men, whatever tool it is, to get close to you, because he is good like that. Thank you, Jesus. He is good like that. So I certainly agree with you. And you remind me of something. I remember when I first got my calling and I came and told you about it. And I was saying at the time how, I was just now, because, when I went through the thing with mommy, I lost my faith. But I was like, I never really had faith. I had faith because mommy said, you're supposed to have faith. And you said to me, well, I've always known that there was God since I was 7 years old. And you didn't know this, but that affected me because my thing was, then I went through the thing, well, how come I didn't know him? And I didn't, because, I'm going to tell you something. I said this before. I couldn't be God, because if I was God, I'd be just smack me somewhere in the corner, because it's just, I don't have the patience. Because we go through so many changes with God that it's just ridiculous. I'm like, sit down and shut up. Just go in the corner somewhere and sit down and shut up. That's what kind of parent I was. But anyway, it affected me because I was like, well, God, she knew God since she was 7 years old. I didn't know God at that young. Why I gotta wait till so old to get? And it took me a while to realize that, just like that movie, well, everybody gets there when they get there. It's all right. You ain't got to get there just because somebody got there at 7 years old, don't mean you had to get there with 7 years. The point is you get there.
But I think that's about the fact that we all have these insecurities in us that says that somehow, I always go back to the word unworthiness, because I think unworthiness really is the culprit that impacts a lot of things about us.
Yeah.
So when we feel, when I was talking the other day about depression and me going through depression and where that takes you, and what I struggle with is that unworthiness always says you are not good enough. Unworthiness always says that person is better than you. Unworthiness always said, I'm just a misfit. Unworthiness is the thing that the enemy uses.
Remember what I used to say when I was little? Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me.
Cry. But that's my baby. But we all go through that, whether we're children or whether we're adults, that place in us that feels unfulfilled, unworthy. So to say, oh, she knew God and I didn't, says, well, what is it about me that I didn't, that God, I don't feel like I've known God. Like, I deal with that too, and I deal with that now, because one of the things that happened in these last couple of weeks is that I was around individuals that I was looking at what it appears they were doing and what they were, and I wasn't there, and what does that say about me, and beat up on myself. Oh, I could. But recently somebody helped me to change my vocabulary. So she said, instead of saying, you should, or I should, or why didn't I, you could say, well, she said, change your vocabulary. You could say, it would probably be helpful if I did X, Y, and Z, or I might want to do X, Y, and Z, but if I don't do X, Y, and Z, okay, what's going to be different? What is it going to change about me? So that you stop that comparison of yourself. Because it's that I shoulda, coulda, woulda stuff will beat up on you all the time. Shoulda shouldn't even be in a dictionary, because shoulda represents a past tense of something that you cannot do anything about, because shoulda is gone. Now, you can do things purposefully today, because all we have is today, but you can choose to or not. And if you choose to, great. And if you don't choose to and God gives you tomorrow, there's another opportunity. But we bash ourselves in the head with the shouldas, like somehow beating up on ourselves is going to change shoulda. Shoulda is dead. Shoulda is done. Ain't no shouldas. It's only now and what we can do and walking in purpose.
Amen, Valley. I love that. And I guess that's why I always say we shouldn't look at what is. We should close our eyes and listen.
We could. We choose to.
Yeah.
It would be nice if, but we should. We're going to extend out.
Okay. Yeah. What God says it's going to be. And I think that's what I have learned over the past year and a half or so. Not to do that. And like you said, it starts with inside yourself. It starts with loving yourself. Keyword love. God is love. Loving yourself and knowing yourself and overstanding yourself. That's where it begins. Once you do that, I think that you open up like no more sheets. You clear out a pathway so that His Spirit can come into you, so that the love of God can come into you. And not just the love of God, but once you get the love of God, you get the love of other people. You start having an understanding of, you're not so quick to dismiss. You're not so quick to judge. You're not so quick to point fingers, because you're open up for that understanding. Mm-hmm. So
that's that 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Love God.
Mm-hmm.
Love you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amen. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad my sister is here with me. This was a good idea. This was her idea yesterday. So I really appreciate that. Tune in to the Hatchett Chronicles Sundays at 3. Tomorrow is Don't Change God's Plan. Look out for my husband, GL, because he don't like to be called Frank.
I call him Frank.
I know, but we won't talk about that.
That's my brother-in-law.
But anyway.
His name is Frank. Yeah, his name is Frank.
You know, dear Jill.
Shit, ooh, you in trouble. You love me.
But anyway, to look out for his mixtape that's coming soon. I think there's still some spots left for anybody who wants to get in on it. $30 a spot. I think it's like 7, maybe 6. Look out for that. Look out for my sister D. Arthur. She is D. Arthur. Her second book, the book club 2.
And also, if you're in the Richmond area, me and some wonderfully powerful, fabulous women are doing on November 10th a workshop entitled Mass Down, Rise Up. And so you can get tickets. It's a free event, but we want to be able to track the people that are registering. You can register at Eventbrite online. You want to be there because the next event won't be free, but we just want to give you a little taste of freedom, and that's why the event is free. And also catch me every first Sunday of the month. The next one is coming up on November 10th when I am on Rejoice Radio 101.3 FM 990 AM. This Sunday you want to get there because I have this 10-year-old young man who preaches, who sings gospel, who ministers like nobody's business. He is 10 and he's been ministering since he started talking. And Little Prince ain't no joke. So you want to be there. That's November 10th at 10 a.m. 101.3 FM 990 AM Rejoice Radio.
Also, there's a club, Addis. They do open mic on Thursday nights between 10 and 11. It's down Shoppo Bottom. Don't start me lying, but Versus used to be in there. So everybody in the Richmond area, and if you're here in Richmond on Thursday nights, come out and support that club. These brothers are doing wonderful things, and we need that. You know, the open mic, the artistry. Come out and support. You know, just check them out. You know. Look out for my book, The Power of God. It's coming very soon. I promise you guys. I started talking about it last week or the week before last, and I'm saying look out for it, but it's coming very soon. So
my sister's an author.
I don't like that word.
She's an author.
I don't like that word. But as I said, God led me to write this book, and I'm doing what God said. You know, I'm not happy about it. I admit it, but I did it. So just look out. This is the author right there. I get it from my basis.
She's an author. When you put words from your heart to the paper, you're an author. She's an author. We sister authors.
I'll do that. We be stars. All right, and thank you for joining us again. Once again, this is Terry Hatchett of the Hatchett Chronicles. I'm here with my sister Valerie McAllister.
Sister Talk with Valerie.
Peace. We out.